I recall as a child growing up, the name Granville was synonymous with the Sons of God Spiritual Baptist Church. This was because he undertook a novel and visionary approach to church leadership by fusing ministry with entrepreneurship and community engagement. The Archbishop clearly had a wider vision, which was to bring his religion to the masses, and he followed in the footsteps of fellow union leaders and national hero, the Right Excellent Clement Payne, and others who preceded him both during and after emancipation, and who used the capital city of Bridgetown as their base in order to be able to celebrate the art form, but also to get the message across to the masses. It is within the environs of Heroes Square and this terminal that the Archbishop Williams found a way for his followers to praise and worship that was outside of the norm of the traditional church. Indeed, his worship preserved and honored the African traditions of our ancestors, and in those weekly Friday and Saturday night services, he brought new life to traditional Christian hymns by infusing them with the color, the drums, and the rhythms typical of African traditions. And in so doing, as we've seen here this evening, he awakened the spirit of the city of Bridgetown. His movement made such traction that a parade of the Sons of God Apostolic Spiritual Baptist Church, performing the Stations of the Cross through communities in the city, became synonymous with the celebration of Easter, and in 1978, in recognition of the impact which Granville was having across communities, the then Minister of Culture, Louis Tull, Nelson Louis Tull, invited the Spiritual Baptist Church to participate in the opening of the Crop Over Festival. The government of the time, under the leadership of Prime Minister Tom Adams at that point, recognized the benefits of having a more inclusive approach to cultural democracy in the transformation of Barbados. That relationship solidified over the years with the Apostolic Church, becoming one of the more integral components of the Crop Over Festival, both in terms of its culinary expertise and indeed performance. Many of you, I'm sure as Honorable MP for the city proclaimed earlier, would recall the delicious dishes over at the Cuckoo Village. I grew up in Brandon, so for me it was always a delight on Kudumat Day to be able to venture over to Cuckoo Village for my own delicacies there. And the truth is that that became a fixture of the Bridgetown market during Crop Over. And even today, I know it is certainly in the memories of all of us in Barbados as having the best cuckoo. I believe it is fair to say that both the Archbishop and his congregation became one of the signature performances to bless the delivery of the last canes, performing the traditional call and response, rocking and swaying to the Afro-inspired rhythm, and signaling the opening of the Crop Over Festival. The fact that Archbishop Williams did not shy away from his African roots was a testimony to his faith and his pride in Black heritage, in identity and empowerment. And this was at a time when many Barbadians were just beginning to embrace their African ancestry. Referred to by Barbados' ambassador to CARICOM, David Commission, as a giant in Caribbean civilization, it was under his leadership that the Apostolic Church developed strong relationships with cultural groups such as the Barbados Landship, Israel Level Foundation, Dancing Africa, and the Clement Payne movement. As a result, the church provided support for local and national cultural events, including Emancipation Day, Kwanzaa, Black History Month, and African Civilization Day. It is important for all of us to recognize that Barbados, despite having suffered oppression under the institution of slavery and colonialism, and in spite of our history of forced arrivals and departure, we continue to forge a society which is based on social justice, reconciliation, and peaceful coexistence. This is a nation that upholds religious freedoms and one that respects the role of faith and spirituality in promoting tolerance and respect, as is reinforced today with the presence of all of the other religious leaders. As a small nation, I believe that we have much that we can teach to other developing and developed countries with respect to inclusivity, and Barbadian leaders in the spiritual faith should be very proud to be part of that journey. In our quest to build and to strengthen our national identity, there must also be a greater appreciation and understanding of our built heritage. If we take, for example, the Fairchild Street Bus Terminal, this historic site is a reminder of the evolution and transformation of Barbados, specifically in public transport. How often have we heard of our grandparents lamenting that all roads lead to town? And that is because this capital city in which we now sit this evening was the conduit to the development of modern-day Barbados. From as far back as the 1700s, historic Bridgetown served as a hub for the island's transportation system, driving commerce for the city merchants, the hucksters, and for the farmers and plantation owners in rural Barbados. It was from right here that the road network emerged, extending its tentacles across the island as the city expanded and developed. The development of the Fairchild Street Bus Terminal has risen from a dusty, hot, open parcel of land with little to no amenities for passengers to a modern terminal, once lovingly referred by the public as the Vic Johnson bus stand. It has provided a new outlook in social transformation of Barbados, as we have sought to consider first and foremost the safety and comfort of the passengers. And over the years, it has also become a melting pot for various nationalities from across the region who ply their trade around its outskirts. Becoming a republic has given us cause to reflect on our journey and to decide not only how we represent our new republic in the present, but also what kind of country we will leave for future generations. Our goal as a government overseeing a parliamentary republic is to redress some of the imbalances in the presentation and the interpretation of the value of our heritage and to reflect on our true diversity. At the moment, we carry the UNESCO World Heritage Property designation for the city of Bridgetown. But it is hard to find visible evidence of the contribution of the enslaved people or of their descendants. And if we take a walk along Broad Street, there are streets and alleys which are named after foreign persons who are linked to our colonial past. We removed Lord Nelson, and I believe that shortly I'm told that there's a competition ongoing to be able to determine and to allow Barbadians to determine what will be put in its place. But the renaming of the bus terminal is part of this move to address the imbalance and to put in place more symbols representative of our shared heritage, including interpretive signs that speak to why certain streets and buildings are important to our story, and to highlight the significant contributors to our national identity and development. 2 weeks ago, we paid homage to the life, the contribution, and the work of Jackie Opel, the father of Spooge, by erecting an interpretive sign and plaque at the amphitheater, bearing his name on the site of the General Post Office. This government stands committed to continuing the practice of recognizing our cultural icons and our heroes. We are gathered here this evening in this unique city that was once described as a jewel in the British crown because of the wealth that it generated for Great Britain. We owe it to ourselves to unearth, to document, and share the stories and cultural practices of those early enslaved persons, of the freed female entrepreneurs who owned and managed hotels in this country, of the early Sephardic Jews and the Syrian Lebanese business people who contributed to the business sector, and of the early Amerindians who gave the city its name. And even on this Saturday evening, the city is still thriving with vendors some of whom may well be the descendants of the early hucksters who can be considered some of the first entrepreneurs in this country. Very often you will hear the refrain that you know not whence you came, how therefore can you know where you are going? And that sentiment is even more relevant today amidst the ever-growing assault on expression of freedom and the negative impact on cultural diversity and identity. But there is a bright light, as I can see a drastic change in Barbadians' acceptance and perception of what it means to be a Barbadian. And it is evident from the scores of Barbadians who visit Golden Square every weekend to check the names of their descendants on the wall that they too want to understand what they played and what their forefathers played in the history of this country. Last month's hosting of the Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum showed that we, as descendants of survivors of the Middle Passage, need to stand up and proudly reclaim our history and solidify our bonds with our brothers and sisters in the African continent. Certainly, Archbishop Williams understood this. Our shared heritage with Africa opens the door for us to embark on a path to sustainable development, fashioned by our collective ideals. And indeed, a major part of that development for us as a new republic is the importance of self-discovery, appreciation, and acceptance of who we are and of our achievements. This site, with its new interpretation, complements those stories highlighted in Golden Square as part of the unraveling of our story. And let me just say that, as the MP for the city alluded to earlier, every time I come to this square, I get goosebumps, whether it is the musical tributes, the sounds of the African rhythms, the drum. It is very chilling because of the memory of what took place in the city of Bridgetown. And I'm certainly proud to be here today to salute the achievements of the Archbishop. And to be a part of a government that understands that spaces matter, that what our foreparents did in these spaces to get us to this point, that it matters, and that we must never forget from whence we have come. I have the fortune of being Minister of Transport Works and Water Resources, and certainly as a member of the Barbados World Heritage Committee. The ministry has been instrumental in the interpretation of this historic city. We've undertaken a number of erections of the directional signs, and in some instances replacing signs over 100 years old. And we're also involved in the erection of interpretation signs on the historic buildings and sites such as the Public Building, the Carnegie Building, and the St. Mary's Church. And I can also tell you that the site that we will unveil today in the name of Archbishop Williams, that there are major improvements taking place also at the terminal. Because I believe it is not sufficient for us to unveil a plaque, but we have to make sure that the people who visit there, the Bajans, the tourists, and everybody who visits there has an appreciation of the space as well. So you will see over the next couple of months, we've ordered some better fittings for the bathrooms. Major refurbishments will take place there. We're also engaging in some painting of the facility. And by the end of the year, so long as the supply chain does not disrupt the order, it is our intention to ensure that there are cameras as well within the facility of the terminal as well. Historian Lennox Honeychurch once said that Barbados has an abundance of riches, and I might add that many are there that we are yet to capitalize on, be they commercially, culturally, or socially. We need to do more to capitalize on the fact that we have a UNESCO World Heritage property, one that helps to address the imbalances of sites on the UNESCO World Heritage List from the Caribbean, and more so, one that speaks to issues of slavery and emancipation. And I know that MP Trevor Prescott and Rodney Grant are leading the charge in terms of making sure that we're able to get our fair share of reparations when that time comes. Major developments under the Barbados Tourism Development, Inc. are also on the way for this historic city, aimed at revitalizing it and ensuring culturally, socially, and economically that Barbadians in this city can live, work, and enjoy. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I want to end this evening by saying to the family of the late Archbishop Granville Williams and to the members of the Spiritual Baptist Apostolic Church that the people and the government of Barbados appreciates the contribution that he has made to Barbados's cultural and religious development. And I'm confident that his granddaughter, who is here with us this evening, and also those members of the church who understand the foundation that he has laid, who understands that their voices must continue to be heard, that they have a place and a role to play within the historical development of this country, will ensure that the late Archbishop Williams's legacy continues for generations to come. I thank you.